how do you do, fellow Redditors of the incel community? Look, no matter what differences we have as people, we all can find common ground in one thing. We all hate women. Especially women on social media when they post things. Really, let's be honest, it's anytime a woman does anything a little bit out of the ordinary, but on social media, it's amplified somehow. It doesn't even need to be that out of the ordinary to be out of the ordinary. Why do they post so many pictures of themselves, even when it's entirely unnecessary? You wanted to photograph the fucking meal, you didn't need to put your face in it. It seems very vain. Sometimes you have these captions where they go, oh, I think I'm looking alright today, maybe, I think, please give me attention, because I am female. Seems a little bit like, fishing, as it were. Because let's be honest, I mean, this is very obvious. They're just doing it because they want attention. Positive attention, ideally, of course, which is what they receive because they're women. They want to get showered in compliments to boost their self-worth. Women, am I right? Imagine for a moment you have a glass of water, and it's just a nice tall glass of H2O, and you're just gulping it. Like it's the essence of life itself. And somebody walks up to you and goes, you're just doing that for hydration. I mean, you know, that's usually what people drink water for, is for hydration, so yes, I am just doing this for hydration. Thank you for pointing that out. It's a pretty obvious thing. That's what it's for. That's why people drink. They drink for hydration. And that's completely fine. Attention and validation may not be as deep and essential a human need as water, but it's still a human need. Of course they're doing it for the attention. My question is, what is wrong with that? Like, why is that a bad thing? Humans are a social species. The reason that we stand on top of the heap of corpses that is evolution is because of our unrivaled ability to socialize. Our entire psyche is built around socialization, and receiving attention and validation is a pretty essential piece of that in order to establish and solidify our very sense of self. When we are rejected or ignored by our community, which, let's be honest, being ignored is essentially the same as being rejected, possibly even a stronger form of it, we feel very bad because once upon a time, that shit was extremely dangerous. You don't want to get cast out of the group, that's not how human beings survive. There was lions with teeth like this, they went down to this. What do you think, you want to face that shit alone? And inversely, the act of receiving attention and validation, acceptance from our group, which at this point can really be any group of people that exists, we are hardwired to feel good about that and to seek it out, to enjoy it, and to really need it. Now, of course, some people like and need attention more than other people. Some prefer this kind of attention, some prefer that kind of attention, some can't stand some particular kinds of attention. Humans are complicated, and you can't really apply statements that you can say about groups to individuals. We can safely say that women on average seek attention and certainly receive attention more than men do. I'm not going to try and get into finding out the reasons for why this is, because it doesn't matter. But that doesn't mean that men don't need attention. As a matter of fact, men need a lot of attention. Men just also tend to not seek it, because when they attempt to do so, there are a lot of other men and a lot of women who will demonize the act of doing so. Now, some might say that the reason this happens is because seeking attention is a woman-coded behavior, and because society hates women, that's why we hate anyone who does that. It's a very simple explanation, but it also ultimately means absolutely fucking nothing. It's just not the whole story. What if I told you that a huge group of people suffering in this kind of social exchange is men? Let's think for a second about the kind of person who, when they see a woman on the internet, just sort of, you know, being will comment, oh, you're just doing this for the attention. And mind you, of course, women also do this. In certain contexts, women do this more than men do it. But let's focus on the men right now. You can easily extrapolate these things to anyone who does this kind of shit. Now, it'll be very easy to just completely dehumanize them because they are being rude, which is more often than not what I see happening. But if we actually attempt to put ourselves in their emotional shoes, what we find is that they are deeply envious, even if they themselves would of course never admit this. And here in this context, that envy is not something to be judged, but simply the manifestation of a deep emotional need that has not been fulfilled. They are starved of attention and validation, which in our increasingly atomized world, especially during a pandemic, is difficult to get for really anyone. And simple reality is that while gender norms in our society encourage women to present themselves in ways that are often rather harmful to them, they also strongly discourage men from presenting themselves in any way at all. I mean, sure, people shit on women for seeking attention, but try being a guy who's seeking attention. Often what'll happen is that people won't even acknowledge your existence, and you will feel this sort of, yeah, but they saw it, is they don't want to interact with it because they feel kind of disgusted. The only thing that men are sort of allowed to solicit attention and validation for is their accomplishments, which can be a rather subjective metric, especially on social media, because, let's be honest, on the internet, everyone is always competing with the best of the best in anything, and the only thing that seems to be valued in any sort of abundance is good looks. And even then, if it's like too obvious that you're trying to, you know, get validation for the things that you have accomplished, people don't like it. It's a lot easier to be cute than to be the best piano player in the world, if you catch my drift. Most men, when you give them a compliment about something that they are discouraged to solicit compliments for, like for instance their appearance, they will have a spring in their step for a week. Now, this is not at all to say that women don't value compliments. They absolutely do. They just get a little more of them, and they sometimes have to be careful because, you know, accepting a compliment to some guys, that's, you know, fucking a signal. Now, to a man seeing this, it can very strongly feel like women are just, you know, accepted, appreciated, given attention for who they are. Whereas as a guy, you can only be appreciated for what you can do for other people. You as a person have no inherent value that is worthy of attention, and that's a pretty, like, fucked up and self-deprecating mindset to be stuck in. The problems that men and women face in this sort of context are just very different. And a big part of what's to blame for all this shit is toxic masculinity. Men are not, and have pretty much never been, encouraged to practice self-care, especially emotional self-care. And let's not even start on reaching out to others for help, which, let's be honest, is basically what attention-seeking behavior is. It's reaching out to other people in the community for help with validating yourself, because I mean, that you can't, it's very difficult to do that on your own. This is why you have all these incels who treat themselves like shit, because that is what society has taught them they are worth. It's this whole Sigma Ligma grindset bullshit dumb fuckery of always be punishing yourself for no reason and never enjoy anything nice in your life. That shit is extremely toxic to men's perception of themselves. It's deeply internalized self-hatred. Listen to me. Just because somebody told you that you shouldn't be needing attention and validation in order to thrive in the world, that doesn't make the very real psychological need for attention and validation go away. And when one of our base psychological needs isn't met, we humans will go to increasingly extreme lengths in order to see it fulfilled. You don't grab a rat off the street and bite into its fresh carcass because you're feeling a bit peckish. And you're not gonna drink your own piss when you have tap water readily available. The tap water in my house actually tastes kind of shit. It's a visual metaphor. You have to be heavily starved of attention to lash out to the people that you see receiving attention, which is both a psychological mechanism in order to cope with the lack of validation that you yourself receive, but also a desperate attempt at securing some of that for yourself in a space where it seems to be so readily available, because at that point, you will take negative validation over no validation any fucking day. And of course, seeking attention, like pretty much anything, can develop a pathological trait. Munchausen's, or Munchausen's by proxy, its more sinister sibling, can be rather problematic and dangerous and harmful to ourselves and the people around us. And we often think of these illnesses as sort of preying on human empathy with, you know, fake illness to extract attention. But this already reveals that society as a whole is not particularly fond of attention-seeking behavior. It's just that for women, it's a little more acceptable to break that taboo. Far from as much as maybe it should be. People who suffer from Munchausen's and its various interpretations and cousins and the whole extended family of that kind of shit usually come from deeply emotionally neglectful backgrounds, so they need more validation from the community that they live in. I come from a deeply emotionally neglectful background, and look at me, I'm presenting myself to the world in order so people say that I'm smart. Early childhood development is very, very essential for this kind of thing, and let's be honest, boys already receive much less emotional validation than girls. But of course, like many psychological problems, this sort of being attention-starved disorder comes with its own mechanisms of self-preservation. Think of a lot of like deeply depressed people when they see people who are happy. Sometimes they will lash out, right? There is a deep sense of resentment there. They are very strongly envious of something that they need desperately, and that this other person seems to have such an abundance of. This can happen with your own perceived wealth, beauty, coolness, entirely subjective shit. Anything, really. Really, the key takeaway here is that women posting attention-seeking posts online or doing other things that are attention-seeking are not the bad guys here. Neither are, and I know this is something a lot of people don't want to hear because it means having to humanize people that you have so conveniently already dehumanized, are the people who lash out at them for doing that kind of thing. Although, of course, you know, obviously that is an extremely rude thing to do. They shouldn't be doing it, and I don't want to deny that it is fucked up to have to go through that on the other side where people lash out at you for it. No, seeking validation and attention through the channels that you feel comfortable with actually is the emotionally healthy and adult thing to do, even if a lot of the women who do it tend to feel rather ashamed of it because of the general stigma that is associated with that kind of behavior. We should all do what they do more. We should emulate them and not like publicly shame them for doing the thing that is healthy. We all need to strive to be more emotionally healthy. It's one of the big challenges, I believe, that society faces in our day and age. And holding on to these toxic gender norms with such vehemence is just the inverse of this, like, pathological attention-seeking self-harm. Like a dog who has been beaten over and over again so it always believes that it has done something wrong, the completely attention-starved incel has internalized the idea that he is not worthy of any sort of attention in society ever, and that can lead to some pretty fucked behaviors. A take that I see very often regarding this particular topic is that the way to fix the problem is for men to just shut up when they want to say something negative and just be happy with their place in life and just make sure that the women are comfortable. Just don't pollute anyone else's life with your expressions of emotional distress. And not only is this take just as toxic as like the hyper, griper, sigma, alpha take of as a man, you shouldn't need emotional validation. It is, when you think about it, the exact same take, even. This whole thing needs a conversation about gender norms, and it can't just be a conversation about how we need to make sure that women's comment sections are always nice and positive. That is hopefully the effect, but it's just not the whole picture. Toxic masculinity isn't just men being bad to women. First and foremost, it is men being bad to themselves. Thank you very much for watching this video. Like, comment, subscribe, share this to your relevant communities, but do not spam them. Consider supporting me on Patreon or Subscribestar, buying some of my merchandise or my short story collection. And in that spirit, really not looking forward to people who are gonna get very mad at me for saying, oh, but you didn't make this primarily about women's issues. No, I didn't. I did that very deliberately. Look, women's issues are important. I fully agree with that statement, and this, especially this subject matter, has some very toxic areas that happen to women. But we basically never talk about the men's side of the thing, and that's just not going to do if we're actually going to approach this in a way that is problem-solving oriented. See you around, cunts.